Well, it's Festive Reverb, chilling at Narwhal Studios with the Buchla Modern Music Easel. I can't believe that I have one of these in front of me. Since '73, the Buchla Music Easel has defined what it means to perform live with modular synthesis. This was one of the first modular synthesizers that was built with performance in mind. And with it being a Buchla, of course, this was built with the idea of using sine wave shaping and timbre modulation as opposed to using filters like what Moog was doing with the Moog systems. So this is the third iteration of the Music Easel in its nearly 50-year or even over 50-year history. And what's new about it? Well, first and foremost, this big black open space right here is a space for a module. So for the first time ever, you could add another Buchla module to your Music Easel without the need of another case. And the 208C, this was updated a few years ago. I know that one of the last things that Don Buchla got to do before he passed away was add some new additions to this 208C, starting with some of these inputs here. Before, with the original Music Easel, you could not run CV inputs into the envelope generator or to the pulser. Now you can do that. Matter of fact, you have inputs for just about every one of the modules that you see here. But then also they made a few additions to the top panel as well, starting with the ability to take your oscillator outputs and just use a tiny cable or a Eurorack patch cable and actually use that to frequency modulate the other oscillator or just send it out wherever you want. That's new as well. You also have the ability to bring in FM modulation into your modulation oscillator, which is a new touch as well. So you could modulate your modulation oscillator. It's definitely like Buchla-esque and leads to more interesting tones and timbres for sure. And on the back of here, there's a selectable switch now that can control this input that you see right here. So I have it selected to control the sequencer stage length, but you could also have it switch to its normal mode, which is the modulation oscillator frequency. So normally you would use this CV input to modulate this modulation oscillator frequency. Now you could select the switch on the back and have this input actually control the sequencer stage, which I'll jump to a little bit later. Also, what's new with this modern Music Easel is this electric music box in and out module. This module itself also brings the Music Easel into the modern studio because it adds a CV and gate input as well as MIDI in and out, including USB MIDI for the actual 208C and USB MIDI for the 218E voltage source module down here, which we'll get to in a little bit. Plus it adds a few other knickknacks like a slew generator and a very, very slow LFO, and it adds a crossfader and a attenuverter for just being able to blend together different voltage sources. And it has an audio mixer on here, so you could run things like a drum machine or whatever type of audio you want through here, and it will come out through the main outputs up here, which are 1/4 inch, or through the normal mix out and through the monitor level headphone output. So more on this new electric music box, or MBIO, later when I break down how I was playing that beat. But let's actually jump to the 218E, which is the touch activated voltage source model, or just your controller for the Music Easel. And this is also on its third iteration with a lot of new features that bring it into the modern era. So I already mentioned that we have USB MIDI control via this little input right here. And if you use that, with like either Ableton or any other devices that have a USB-C host, it will send MIDI back and forth. So you could use this control surface to actually play whenever you have it MIDI to, or and vice versa, and use this to send a MIDI clock to sync the arpeggiation rate, which is right here. And with this being the third iteration, they have really updated the sensitivity of this touch plate. Now even like the lightest touch, as you see this pressure output here, gets you a lot of expression. And it's not really pressure like pushing down, it's more so like how much of your skin is contacting the touch plate. They also updated the preset voltage source here, and they added a little shortcut or hack, if you will, if we hold these pads 2 and 3, it can sort of lock your Arpeggiator down so you could just have your hands free to do Buchla things. So that's another update as well. Let's go to this VCA output or this dual low pass gate output, and let's turn up this complex oscillator right here. So this complex oscillator and the modulation oscillator, those are your two oscillators. They work in tandem with each other. So with the oscillators and with Buchla in general, the idea is that you start with a sine wave and you wave shape it and you wave fold it and you modulate that wave with another sine wave that is wave shaped and folded. And then you blend that all together and you get interesting timbres. And you can do all that before you run the audio to either a low pass filter if you want to, or the low pass gate right here. And it's cool that you can use this if you just switch upwards to a low pass filter normally, or just a regular VCA even. But of course, with getting that quintessential Buchla West Coast style sound, keeping it on the low pass gate combination would be, the best way to do that. So let's just start with this complex oscillator and actually like wave shape this sine wave a little bit. And we can also select what kind of wave shape we want. I'm at triangle right now. You can go up to pulse, or square in this case, and pulse. And I could use this timbre fader to actually fold that wave now. Cool, so now let's bring up the modulation oscillator, which is hardwired to modulate this complex oscillator. And that will be going to the dual low pass gate, gate 2 over here. And we can control that tuning as well. We can also select from a selectable wave shape on this one. Sawtooth, square, triangle. So even adding that modulation oscillator now we get to a really familiar sounding lead. But there's like no articulation on this, right? So let's like start patching this thing up. Firstly, we want to do is recognize the fact that every one of these modules are color coded. I broke down the dual low pass gate, I broke down the complex oscillator and modulation oscillator. Let's actually go in somewhat order of the synthesis flow here and check out the envelope generator right here, which is in orange. And if you follow this arrow, you can see that now we have the envelope generator outputs on every one of the orange outputs here. So that means that I can go to dual low pass gate level 1, which is this complex oscillator, take what they call the shorting bar. That's what Buchla calls it. I just call it the jumper thing. Anyways, I could just take this and go envelope generator out into the level of level 1. Now, I have a very short envelope set on the envelope generator, and it's also on the transient envelope. I could do a sustained envelope because this is an attack, sustain, decay envelope, but just to get that quintessential Buchla sound right out of the gate, I have a very short, snappy envelope set, and I'm striking this low pass gate. But of course, let's open it up a little bit. And the way you do that, it's not going upwards. Actually, you would go down in this case because the numbers are getting bigger. I'm still on VCA mode on the output module here. And I have a longer envelope, but now let's shorten the envelope back to what I had so you can hear the difference. And let's go to transient envelope mode. Now it's playing that snappy transient envelope, but it wants to strike a dual low-pass gate, or a low-pass gate in the situation, which is a combination of your low-pass filter and your VCA. It doesn't want to strike a VCA just in this case, so you're not really getting that much volume out of it, even with this level pushed to the max. So let's go back to combination. And even if you create longer envelopes on just the low-pass gate mode, it still sounds cool. Cool, so we just explored making your first sounds with the Modern Music Easel, but obviously you could do a lot more than that, especially when you start using the 218 and the arpeggiator that's built into here. So if you want to do the arpeggiation hold, which is how I have this arpeggiation going right here, all you need to do is make your arpeggiation and holds pads 2 and 3. It's going to jump up an octave here because I have it set to octaves, but let's go none. And let's hold pads 2 and 3. Cool, now let's go back up. So now my hands are free to just do Buchla stuff. And what I want to do first is actually use this modulation oscillator. And I want to take the notes that are being played from this arpeggiation, invert it. So let's use a stack cable, go to the pitch, which is, you could go either or. You could go pitch out of the 218, or you could just stack from here, either or. It's all getting the signal. And let's use this inverter module here, which actually inverts the voltage downward. And let's come out of here. Let's use the attenuverter that is built into our electric music box I/O to attenuate that voltage some more, and then we're going to go out of here, then we're going to go into the pitch input of the modulation oscillator. And all I'm doing is dialing in a little bit of counterpoint to the arpeggiation that I have going. So I can control the level of this modulation oscillator so it adds a little bit of counterpoint, but I'm not striking the actual notes here. So let's actually use some random voltage to do that. And what's cool about the Music Easel is every one of these random voltage outputs are different, going from here to here to here to here. So let's try, I think the lowest voltage is this one. So let's try that one. And the random voltage is actually being generated from the key bed. So the arpeggiation is generating it's telling the random voltage to generate, sort of like a sample and hold, if you will. So I'm just gonna go through these different random voltage outs. we just had an arpeggiation going from the 218E. Now let's actually just use some of the trigger controls that are available on the 208C with the pulsar and with the voltage sequencer here. We have a up to five step sequencer, and y'all might think that's a little wonky, why only 5 steps? Well, you could select it down to 4 and get more of your typical 4 time signature grooves, but the 5 step is pretty cool. And we have this pulsar module here, which is just a trigger source. So it generates triggers based off of the speed that it's running, and a new thing that they added to the 208C a few years ago actually was adding this one strike button, so you could just hit this button here, and when the mode is on self mode, the trigger source will just go as fast as how you set it. All right, so now this pulsar is pulsing and it's actually triggering the sequencer. So I'm actually going to take my voltage coming out of the sequencer and attenuvert it so I can control it a little bit more. So let's go out and let's go into the end, and now that's coming out and it's going into the modulation oscillator pitch right here. Another cool thing that you could do, earlier I said that this input right here is selectable, so I have it selected to sequencer step length, so we can use random voltage now to have different step lengths, which is really cool. So you hear how it's like randomly going from 1 step to 2 steps to 4. Let's go 5 so you can hear it more. Cool. Now I still have a whole nother complex oscillator that I could work with, and I'm going to use the 218 for that, and I'm also going to use the pressure output of the 218 to actually play it. So. So yeah, we're just like biting a small bite of the Buchla cookie here, but this is fun, this is great, and this is great to do on its own. But I'll be remiss to not actually use this little patch sound that we got going here and not talk about the spring reverb that's built into here. So let's just turn it up and hear what it sounds like, because it's a real spring reverb that's built into the back of here. And it's definitely a part of that Buchla sound that we're all used to hearing. So I mentioned earlier that I would get more into the electric music box and out, which is this new module right here that comes with the Modern Easel. And this is the module that is now integrating this Buchla Music Easel into the rest of your studio world. Before, this was kind of a wild card. This kind of existed in its own universe. And if you wanted to basically integrate it with other things, you had to do sort of wild card-esque things like running audio through it, generating envelopes from that audio, and then keeping everything in time through that way. But now we have the joy of CV and gating, and also the joy of MIDI all in this module. And this module is actually upgradable as well. With this big Buchla logo here, you could actually buy the program manager, which before would just go based off of PCB cards that you would put in here. I don't have that on here, obviously, but I did bring Ableton Live and the Push 3, and I have that working through USB MIDI connected to my Ableton environment. And that enables me to add MIDI clock, and that also enables me to use the Push 3 to play notes or MIDI sequence notes and actually play some stuff that I have in my head on the Buchla, dial up the tone how I want, and record it, and just have it all integrated in my studio workflow. So it's really fun, and as you heard, like, it works like any other synth would work, or how you would expect the synthesizer to work. So bravo to Buchla for, modernizing the music easel for when you actually want to do something with a little bit more control. Like I was explaining earlier, before the electric music box and out, the only way to really integrate drums like I was doing with Ableton was to actually just run drums through this preamp module here and generate an envelope out of those drums or whatever audio you're running through it, because it's got an envelope follower or an envelope detector, as they call it in Buchla world. And drums work the best because obviously it has the most transients. So let's actually try that out. I got my Poly in play here, and let's try to run some drums through, see what happens. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed hanging out with me in this new modern music easel, the music easel that is built for the 21st century, built for the modern producer, musician. It's really fun, and I just want to get back to patching up, making some more beats with this, and making some more jams while I have this thing in my possession. So that's all I got for y'all today. I'm Fest Grandiose here at Narwhal Studios, signing off with Reverb and Buchla. And as always, stay safe and keep creating. Peace.